Hello everyone, and welcome to a Savius and Ixia joint webinar. Today's topic is on-premises visibility versus visibility as a service. Just a few reminders before we get rolling today. This presentation will be recorded and will be provided to you in a follow-up email. If you have any questions for the presenters during the presentation, please submit them using the questions tab. We'll key them up for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you notice, there is a few handouts that are available on the control panel. You can download those, one of them being a copy of the slide deck for today, and the other being the Savius and Ixia solution brief. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. We have Nadeem Zahid from Savius. He is the Senior Director of Business Development here. And we also have John Delafield. He is the VP of Business Development, and he represents Ixia. So Nadeem, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thanks, Matt, and good morning, everybody. So let's jump into it. And I think the question that we have to start with is on today's webinar is why visibility matters in today's networks. What is happening is that in the time of information technology that we are going through, businesses are going through a massive change due to digital transformation. Almost every sector, such as retail, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, service provider, are going through some sort of digital transformation. This digitization in terms of IT adoption, e-commerce, digital banking, medical records is the way forward in a more competitive world. On top of this, millions of mobile and IoT devices and applications continue to enter the space. So they are really contributing to this exponential growth in the data. And the network, which is connecting everything and everybody together, is the mission critical data highway. Challenged with some new sets of issues, such as performance, security, and manageability. And we think that none of those is possible without having visibility into your network. So what is happening that the scattered data, application complexity, and flexible workforce pose new challenges, such as capacity planning, you see on the left, application performance, and issues of accessing application means application security. As a result, network visibility provisioning and having strategies for that is now a CIO level issue. So having said, how digitization is driving exponential growth in data, as the magnitude of the data, manageability and security and associated costs begin to go out of hand, enterprises tend to deal with it in one of the following ways. On the left, if you're a large enterprise, you're generally considering data center consolidation. That is collapsing multiple data centers into fewer, possibly different locations, increasing efficiency and driving costs down. Whereas shown in the middle, data center virtualization could be a strategy for mid to large enterprises as well. That is shift from traditional physical infrastructure to a VM-centric environment, extension of which could be your on private cloud or hybrid environment. And lastly, as on the right, public cloud adoption with an outsourced subscription-based pay-as-you-grow model is the new emerging trend. This is where we introduce the term visibility as a service that we're going to talk about today. It's a model to subscribe to visibility tools and expertise as you need them and you consume them, hence shifting from an OPEX rather than a CAPEX centric model. And it becomes very attractive and affordable for all sizes of enterprises, as they can now have access to very sophisticated set of tools and at fraction of the cost. It is estimated that by 2020, 70% of the global 500 will supply their own digital services through the cloud. More than 70% CIOs now have a cloud-first strategy. Therefore, they'll need deep visibility into the cloud in order to run business through the cloud. So I think at this point, you perhaps have a pretty good idea about the mega trends that are impacting today's enterprises and data center environments and the disruptions they are dealing with, and why having visibility designed, planned, and provisioned in your networks is so important. So at this point, let me ask John to help us understand that when we talk about visibility into the data, really what kind of data we are talking about and why that is so important.
Oops. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. The key data that is important to enable these digital transformations that Nadeem just spoke of is network data, or sometimes it's called wire data or packets. That is the ultimate source of truth. There's the old saying that packets never lie. And that is true, that has been true, and it continues to be true as we move into the cloud as well. And as you can see from this Gartner quote, it is becoming more of a strategic asset that companies can use. And unlike flow data or log data, which are not as granular, the packet data gives that richness that is vital for different types of applications. So for example, understanding the customer's real user experience, or to be able to identify and stop sophisticated security threats. This is where the packet data excels. Now, it's very valuable, but the challenge is there is a lot of it, and it's only growing. And so how you access this data and then analyze the tremendous amount of data becomes critical. And the approaches that you use, whether it is on-premises or in the cloud, differ. So now let's look at that a little bit more detail. What we'll do is we'll see how you do it and how you approach this challenge on an on-premise deployment.
Thanks, John. As John pointed out, having a clean approach towards how you're gonna have visibility into the data is important when you are managing your data center enterprise network. So you're an IT ops and NetOps person. And one way to look at it is that we introduced this concept of network visibility framework here at Savius, which is logically thinking 3 separate layers. At the bottom layer here, which John is going to talk about more, as Exia products really specialize in that layer, is where you and how you access access the visibility into wire data or packet data, which changes, by the way, based on if you are desiring visibility into north-south traffic versus east-west traffic, which is now 80% of the data center traffic and never leaves it generally. And then we have this message layer on top, which is the way to think about how you're going to talk about different tools such as security tools around you that need to share information derived from that data. Security conversation is really beyond the scope in today's webinar, but at some point we'll touch that. On the very top is this visibility layer, where you actually put all the data that now you have derived out of different sources. You put that to use to actually get meaningful analytics out of it that help you monitor, analyze, automate, and based on certain thresholds, alert you to take certain actions. So what we call actionable forensics and analytics. So you can command and control your network behavior in the desired direction. And this can be taken from an on-premises to a cloud virtualized environment, which will give you some contrast to how different strategies vary. So having said that, let me hand off to John back and talk about that data layer.
Yeah, there's a number of kind of key challenges that have to be looked at in accessing the data in an on-premise. And the first is there's the north-south traffic that needs to be monitored. There's also the traffic east-west on servers and how to get access to that. And then more and more traffic is being encrypted. And so how do you approach those things? So I'll kind of walk you through that. On the left, we have kind of a traditional leaf-spine kind of data center structure. And the best approach to provide access to the tools on the right is to first start off with taps. And these are physical taps as well as virtual taps. And so these access copies and get all the copies of the packet data, and then do it both. You kind of want to monitor your key spots in the network as well as on actually the servers themselves. And so once you have this data, it's very rich, but there is a lot of it. And so this is where a solution called a network packet broker comes in. And what the network packet broker does is it takes the input from the taps and virtual taps or span ports and then aggregates it together, and then you can groom the traffic. So some tools want web traffic, some tools don't. And you can begin to go in and filter in many different ways, even down to the application of what application goes to what tool. And you can get rid of duplicate packets, you can decrypt it, and you can groom the data so that now each monitoring or security tool gets just the traffic they need, no more, no less, and they get it from anywhere in the data center. So as a result, they work at the really peak efficiency. And you can also use it to load balancing so that as you scale, you can easily grow. Now Nadeem is going to now walk through an example of how customers use this wire data.
Thanks, John. So yeah, so this gives you a very realistic example, actually, as many of our joint customers happen to use our solutions. For example, one of the many possibilities, in this case, what we call application performance monitoring or network performance monitoring. This is a very typical large enterprise distributed branch office environment, and you have a couple of branch offices with our data center location, where IXIA, for example, would have set up the strategic tap points already in a spine leaf infrastructure, and already is having that foundation data layer laid out for the visibility. Let's say at a certain point, the remote user in one of the branch offices on this wireless link starts having problems because somewhere in the data center, a top of rack link or the switch itself starts having issue, which is not really clear to anybody. So what the user experiences is the problem with the application flow, which could be, for example, huge latency or connectivity issues. So as soon as he reports that to the NetOps or IT ops person, you can just start capturing the network data through IXIA on, for example, Savis Omni appliance, as well as on Insight Probe setup in your branch offices. And as the the IT steps in, can remotely connect to those captured data and run real time as well as delayed analytics, depending what the time gap is. Initially, the IT guy has no idea where the problem is, but based on the very meaningful analytics that Savius tool provide, built on that meaningful data, help it to narrow down pretty quickly. For example, with our key measures analytics and forensics we provide, you can have access to top protocols that are there. You can have analytics around your utilization of resources, dependency mapping, which is actually a very critical thing that particularly narrowing down to this guy's flow, and as well as at that point application, which servers are talking to which servers and what overall compass view looks like. Having initially starting with the multi-segment analysis, you don't know the issue is on the wireless side of the house, it's on the in between, or it's within the data center. So you can have a end-to-end view in terms of multi-segment analysis and latencies, and ultimately zooming into the right area and looking at particular flow related latency, and finding out, oh, there is the problem. So that's how we sort of take you through this funnel process and help you find out and fix issues related to applications as they map underneath to network infrastructure, and reducing mean time to resolution. We don't want to really bore you today with a lot of technical details because we have very specialized webinars available for that you can access. So, but I think this gives you a pretty good idea of a use case, for example, that as those enterprises going through those changes and disruption, they're going to face these application issues on daily and weekly basis, and how on-premises visibility helps you to solve those. So having said that, let me hand off to John, and at this point introduce the concept of visibility as a service.
Thank you. So when you move to the cloud, which of course is a huge trend, this packet data is just as valuable in the cloud as it is on premise or in your own virtual private data, virtual cloud. And so enterprises, they want to be able to use and benefit from packet data and using their same security and monitoring tools that they do in their data center in the cloud. Now, however, when you move to the cloud, there's a whole new set of challenges in addition to the ones I just talked about as you move into the cloud to access and then use this rich packet data to enhance your business. And the, let's see here. Excuse me. And so the way you do that, here's the first challenge. The first challenge is you have extremely limited access to the data. You have no access to the first and second layer, and then only very limited access to layer 3 because AWS or Azure, that's what they have access to that, and customers do not. So this is a fundamental challenge right off the bat. However, there's more challenges than just data access. The other key challenge is elasticity. So the beauty of the cloud, and the reason people are adopting it, is because it scales. So as applications and peak demands go up and go down, it scales with it. So, for example, an enterprise may have a web app or a mobile app for a sale for a retailer. It may spike at certain times of the year, certain times of the day, and you have to bring up hundreds or sometimes thousands of workloads for this application. And then just a few hours later, it may go down to 10. So how do you monitor something like that goes up and down? And the second is just the infrastructure churn. And that is that where your workload is residing is constantly changing. And so how do you continue to monitor something when it's so dynamically moving within the public cloud? And these present some new challenges on top of the ones we talked about in an on-premise deployment. So what Ixia did is when we looked at this and our customers came to us with this challenge, we looked at what is the best way to do it. And so the approach we took was to redesign our approach for the cloud, taking advantage of the cloud and addressing the cloud's unique challenges, and not simply kind of just moving the network packet broker model, which we discussed earlier, into the cloud. And so the way the solution works is, just as I'll walk you through it. On the left, you have the traditional data center or private cloud that we discussed earlier. Now, customers, as they move to hybrid models, they have their applications deployed in AWS in this case as well. Now, when you move to the cloud, these blind spots hit immediately. How do you get access to that important traffic in and out of the VPC and within to your data center? These become blind spots immediately. So the approach that Ixia took is something we call Cloud Lens. And so Cloud Lens is a SaaS-based model. And what you do is you deploy Docker containers that sit within both the source, the application that you're monitoring, as well as the tool that is either securing or monitoring that application. And it sits behind the customer security structure, so you maintain security and compliance. Now, traffic is filtered at the source, so it's very efficient. And then a secure peer-to-peer tunnel is used to send the packets, just the packets of interest, to the monitoring tools. All this is managed by the Cloud Lens Central Management SaaS automatically. So it's very easy to deploy and then use on an ongoing basis. Now, this approach has a variety of kind of just fundamental advantages. The first is elasticity. This is born in the cloud based on containers. And so the solution detects when more application loads are driving from the source, the application you're monitoring. We detect that and then grow with it. So we continue to instrument as more and more instances of the application are spun up. And then likewise, when the tool or security tool or monitoring tool scales accordingly to monitor and secure that increased workload, we detect that as well and automatically load balance it, and then spinning up and then spinning down again. So it's very, very efficient. The other key element of this is that it's very easy to use. As I mentioned, it's a SaaS model, so it's a nice, easy drag and drop GUI to set it up initially and then it is automated and dynamic from there. So it's extremely easy and automated. And then kind of the third key piece is it's an umbrella solution. What I mean by that is that it works across different public clouds. Most enterprises use not just one but multiple public cloud providers. And so this approach can work across multiple. We're doing it with AWS first, but fundamentally it can work across multiple public cloud providers. And then the other thing is that once you access this traffic, you can send it to multiple monitoring tools, because you may want to look at application performance, you may want to look at security. In fact, you will want to do those too, and then that's where we can provide one source of data to all the customers' monitoring tools. And then lastly, it combines an overall solution between your data center on premises, your private cloud, as well as your public cloud. So you really kind of have a complete solution. Now, Nadeem is going to kind of walk us through an example of how all this can work together to provide real value to a customer solving their business challenges.
Thanks. And for that, I'm going to go back to the diagrams we showed earlier. Just bringing a hybrid cloud picture here, which could be pure public cloud play as well, where we have the enterprise remote office and on-premises data center, as well as this enterprise wants to tap into public cloud. Generally for people, I give this analogy, which is very interesting, that the way you look at it is capex versus opex shift, and pay-as-you-grow model is the difference between on-premises visibility infrastructure versus visibility as a service is exactly like you want to buy and maintain your own car, or you want to just Uber so as you need it. So I think that's a very good analogy of how you shift from this model and economies of it. And that's exactly here the case. You can, as John put, access and subscribe to CloudLens solution, hosted in a public cloud anytime as you need it for, whatever duration you need it for. In this case, Exia does the heavy lifting to having that data layer tapping, means with the virtual taps going all the way to the client hosts, to the VM levels, and taking that meaningful data out and dealing with filtering and deduplication and all the front end work. So you have the meaningful data, and that's where east-west traffic. So when you have an application issue or web application deployed, all you see is the rendering on the far end, but what happens between web server to database or whatever transactions happen there, that is a very valuable visibility. And Exia takes that and then it funnels it, when you have an issue, the right packets to OmniPliance virtual solution hosted as a VM as well over an encrypted path, so nobody else can see your data. And from there, you can connect centrally to on-premises appliances or remote appliance as well in the cloud to run your analysis. So it makes it really a very beautiful, very seamless solution to have centralized visibility across your public and private cloud infrastructure. Having said that, let me now talk about a little bit, now that you understand at this stage the difference between on-premises and in the cloud, visibility, what value Exia and Savia solution together bring for our customers who are planning to deploy those solutions. As I mentioned, the wire data comes from on-premises or from cloud, any source, to Exia devices. And if I can steal the term from NFV world called service chaining, you have the service chaining where Exia would deal with encryption, decryption, deduplication, and filtering of the traffic to forward the right traffic to our devices. And then we will start capturing and analyzing and storing, and you can actually go back and forth between storage and analysis anytime you wish, or do it in real time. So now we build upon this meaningful analysis on top in different needs and requirements and pain points that you want to solve with that analysis. It could be network performance issue, it could be capacity planning, it could be resource optimization of your existing investments you have put into your data center, SLA QS management, or forensic investigation should you have a security breach or situation like that. On top, basically, what what we are really solving is application performance issues or unified communication related problems, or if you are having a transactional fraud related cases in a financial institute, things like that. But for a CXO level, what they are thinking is, that ultimately by doing all those things, we are really assuring business continuity, compliance, service assurance, productivity optimization, and cybersecurity value for the businesses. So I think without boring too much our audience about the products and solutions, but this is just a quick glance of Savviest portfolio, that what you actually plug to Ixia solution. We offer a sophisticated solution for actionable network visibility and forensics, as we phrase it, for small businesses, large enterprises, or service providers. In simple terms, Savviest products have the capabilities to capture and store network packet data and run real-time or long-term analysis on it, which produces some very useful insights for you as we went over. Simply put, we have multiple capture tools for wired and wireless, small capture probes, and high-performance appliances with zero packet loss I/O, high horsepower compute, and onboard extensible storage. There is virtualized version tested for cloud and under production with Ixia Cloud Lens. All of the physical or virtual solution then makes the network data available to you to be used with our OmniPeak software for on-demand and visibility anytime. So that gives you an idea. Now, who deploys really this? You might think that this is perhaps a marketing pitch, but it's not. Actually, we have 10,000 plus systems deployed around the world across 60 countries. We have 6,000 plus really high value, very sophisticated customer set, and more than half of that are serious mission critical data centers who are offering services, which includes healthcare providers, insurance companies, financial institutes, manufacturing, retail chains, higher education, tech companies, service providers and mobile operators, defense contractors, and government agencies. So some really serious environments who really want to know what is happening in their data center environment, because that is so important. With that, John is going to talk about Ixia.
Yeah, Ixia, we just some stats on Ixia, but we're a market leader, and you can see we have customers and offices all over the globe. So customer support is very important. But we have a lot of mutual customers with Savviest, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of examples. The first is this a large North American diversified manufacturer, and the challenges they were having is with their key kind of business apps is the too long mean time to repairs. So it was taking on average about 3 days for them to resolve problems. Which was just unacceptable. So by combining the Ixia and the Savviest solutions together, they were able to bring it down to actually under 3 hours by having that rich packet data and then the analytics and the troubleshooting capabilities that Savviest brings to the table. So that was that's a good example. And I'll touch on another example in Europe, which is a very large IT provider for the financial industry. And what they were going through is a digital transformation initiative. And so in particular, they were really rolling out a variety of new mobile apps. And as we know, responsiveness and kind of the snappy response of those is critical in order to kind of win business and retain customers. And so they kind of from the get-go wanted to make sure they were instrumented in such a way that they could roll these out with confidence and grow their business. And so this was a joint solution with this customer that has been very successful. And also I might add, this customer is also very interested in moving some of these applications to the public cloud. And so there's some nice discussions going on with them as well as we roll out these new products. And with that, I'll pass it over to Matt.
Thanks, John. So we do have some questions coming in, and we'll start the Q&A here shortly. Please go ahead and keep sending in your questions as they come to your minds. Just a few actions that we can have for today. If you'd like to learn more about Savviest and Ixia, you can see some information. You can visit our websites, or you can contact us via the phone numbers. Both Ixia and Savviest have some upcoming events. If you're interested in learning more, go ahead and go to the events page for both companies and register for more webinars. So with that, we'll go ahead and get right into the Q&A. But we do have a first question that's geared more towards Savviest. Is the VTAPs part of the Savius product offering?
So I will hand that off to John to answer. The answer from Savius side is that you know, as we pointed out, that is why we need Ixia exactly for.
Yeah, the virtual tap is an Ixia product. That's that solution that works in the private cloud, and yes, that's provided by Ixia to feed traffic to Savius.
All right, great. So another question going off of that a little bit is the visibility as a service available today from Savius?
Good question. So, you know, as I touched upon it a little bit, and I think it's an opportunity to explain more, we have tested our solution together and it's functional, but I think we have some work to do in terms of productization and offering and putting it, selecting the right public cloud, which obviously, you know, would be, for example, could be no commitments, but could be AWS to begin with, you know, just to be with Ixia in there, and there, you know, low limitation on other public cloud offerings in future. But this is something that you cannot buy today, but you should stay tuned for when we offer it.
And from an Ixia perspective, the cloud-led solution that I described, that is available today. And so that we're ready to go on that. We started with AWS and are looking to move to other cloud providers as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, a few people are asking if Cloud Lens is available now. So they're also asking if it, all they asked was Azure. I'm assuming that they're wondering if it's functional with Azure.
At this exact moment, the answer is no, but that is our plans. And the way that one of the beauties of the way it's structured is that it's designed in such a way that it can work across multiple platforms. That's just kind of built into the approach, but we're doing AWS first.
All right, great. Next question is they've been tasked with moving apps into the public cloud. With Cloud Lens, can I send traffic to my on-prem tools? And can you elaborate a little more on how they can use Ixia to send traffic to multiple tools?
Yeah, you can. The answer is yes. Now, the question then is on the use case. Is it efficient to send the traffic from the cloud back down to the tools, or is it more efficient to send it to the tool that's in the cloud itself? And so the answer is yes, you can do it, but that may not be the best way to do it. So just that needs to be considered.
Yeah, so I would second that. Just a perspective on that is that a good data center design is where, as I mentioned, 80% of the traffic never leaves the data center. So if you're sending the traffic back out, you're contributing to that problem of north-south, increasing the north-south traffic. And I think you need to step back and look, do you really need to send it out?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I think the other half of that question dealt with about multiple tools, and the answer is yes. And that's actually one of the beauties of it, in the sense that you can use this container on the workload that you're monitoring, and then send it to multiple tools, just like you can in the on-premise as well.
All right. Another question here is, how do you go about providing this? I'm not sure what exactly they're alluding to, but how do you go about providing this in the O365 or Amazon cloud environments?
I think they are asking Office 365, which goes back to Microsoft versus AWS, I think, John.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Today on AWS, I'd actually, AWS, we don't do Azure currently. So if that answers the question, if not, please, we can get more detail for that participant who asked that question.
Okay, I think you cut out just a little bit there, John, so I missed some of what you said.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying that we're in AWS today. We're not in Azure, but we plan to be. But if my answer there doesn't answer that specific question, we'd be happy to follow up offline.
All right, great. So another question here is, can you? This is geared more towards Savius. Can you run real-time analysis at the same time you are capturing data to disk?
Absolutely, that is actually our differentiation point. One of the differentiation point is that we can do both at the same time, and that's where the performance picture comes from. many tools out there struggle to do that.
All right, thank you. Let's see. We got some great questions coming in here. I'm gonna try to go through them as fast as possible. Next one is, how do I get Cloud Lens to scale with monitoring tools? But how does it scale? Or I guess they understand how Cloud Lens scales with monitoring tools, but they would like to know, how does it scale with customer workloads?
I see, yeah. So the way that works is that the container is, you just configure it to deploy the container, the Docker container, into the application, the workload that needs to be monitored. So once you do that, the IXIA SaaS, the visibility SaaS, takes care of all the kind of the heavy lifting. And so as those workloads are spun up, the container goes with it, and then it keeps track of where they are and then sending the traffic to the tools, which scale as well. So it's very automated and easy to use.
All right. And another question here is, why isn't log and flow data good enough in the cloud?
Yeah. There may be some instances where it is good enough, okay? So I don't want to say it's like never valuable, because when you're doing kind of, if you just need high level, it is fine. But to understand really the true customer experience, the latencies, as for example, an application is going from a handset to a data center up to the cloud, you really need to see those packets. And so there's a lot of real-world customer experience monitoring. They just need the packets. And then on the security side, there are a lot of different types of threats that just are not detected by flows or logs, which are really kind of stats on the packets. And you really need to see the packets in order to see these threats. And by the way, in the cloud, attackers are coming up with clever ways to take advantage of the cloud to kind of hide their malicious activity. And having these packets in the cloud is an excellent way to detect and stop them.
I totally agree with this. Goes to historic, conversation of packet versus flow discussion in the industry, and forensic experts, when they step in, they'll love packets because, as John put it, packets don't lie. Flows give you a different level of information, different kind of information, but it leads towards ultimately, you want to look at packets as you want to find out who else they talk to, what flows to what flows, and what related packets and conversations happen there. So ultimately, you need to go down to packets.
Thank you. So we have another question, and they asked more about the workload. How is traffic sent from workload to the tool? And then they said that they heard something about docket container, but didn't quite get it. They were wondering if this is how the traffic is extracted.
Yeah, for example, the monitoring tool would, yeah, the answer is yes. The monitoring tool would listen to the Docker container, the Cloud Lens Docker container, just like they would, listening on within kind of a physical port in a network. But we use Docker, so it scales, it's very lightweight, and it's very well suited for the cloud.
All right. Well, with that, go ahead, Nadeem. Sorry, didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah. So from our end, I just wanted to add that the way so not only the client hosts, so there is a communication that happens because of the way you contain the Dockers into the application side that talks to IXIA, but we also use the similar kind of mechanism. I mean, being the tool, in this context, and so we talk to Cloud Lens application and form an encrypted path that would basically flood that. So Docker containers here have that purpose. Also, another purpose is that in a DevOps environment, these microservice offering is increasingly popular. So if you are familiar with Dockers and the philosophy around it and how you can offer, if you're in cloud business offering services outbound, I think that becomes then it must be a piece of cake for you to play with Dockers.
Great. Well, with that, we are getting right up to the end of our time, and I would like to suggest that if you have more questions, to go ahead and contact both Savius and IXIA. You can contact the email at info@savius.com, or for IXIA, contact _us at ixiacom.com. And with that, thank you everybody for your great questions. Thank you to our presenters today for giving a great presentation, and have a great day.